This weekend, Ryan blames the glue, Andy farms in a mech, and we wreck shop on our buy rent burn. I'm Ryan.
I'm Andy.
And this is Weekend Rental, episode 176. Well, all right. We are back again, another episode. Couple of shout outs right off the bat. We've had, I don't know what it is with Twitter or X. I don't know what you call it. Is it Twex? But we've had a couple of people. I just want to call out Cestus, Pocket Rocket Radio. Thank you guys so much. Cestus, I know, is like kind of our hype man for every episode we put out. We always appreciate that. Pocket Rocket Radio gave us a shout out too recently. We don't expect that. We're just a couple of dudes who make a podcast because we think it's fun. We're fucking super appreciative of anybody who listens to it. But that said, while we don't expect anybody to make a comment or a mention, it's just us, right? Like, we're a small time podcast. We'll respond, leave a comment, send an email, retweet us on Twitter or Twex X, because we're watching. So awesome. Thank you guys. We love that.
Thank you so much.
But this episode, Andy, we've turned the tables. Andy is now fighting the cold. You're right.
Yeah, I think trenches. It takes a while to, go through your microphone through the electrical wires to head over here, but it's made it now. So
you had no chance because the viral, it got in me. It built up some immunity. It went back. Through the airwaves. I hope you make it. Is what I'm saying. I
have a pop filter on here, so
okay.
At least I'm masking.
Yeah, good for you. Is it what is it, like the P95 or whatever the fuck masks were? I'm not up to my coronavirus lore anymore. So
toilet paper.
Yeah, that's what you want. Yeah. M95, that's what it was. M95,
Yeah.
Well, we're back at it again. And I saw, like, as is kind of the usual, we both scrambled last minute to like fill in our objectives. I'll just touch off on like a fun one because I think it's cool. We've all talked about like how the Dadish games are kind of in our purview and fun and quirky little, I don't know, platforming Mario 3D or Mario 3 like ripoffs. So I think today possibly released was Dadish 3D. It is on iOS, possibly Android, I don't know, for free with ads. You have to use touchscreen controls, which suck butt, I will say. I would say in the previous Dadish games, it did not matter. But for everyone else, I would say these games are great, and it's cool to see the series take the 3D turn. Probably just spend the $10 though and buy it on Steam or Switch or whatever, because touch controls no bueno with this one. It's a little too involved. Left to right, fine. 3D, not the best.
Yeah. So do you have camera control then too, or not?
Right. Yeah. So it's basically camera control is the other component. Is like you need. So they've been doing a lot of like. Well, I'm only through like most of the first world, but there's a lot of like back and forth, right? So it's like get to the end of a laneway, jump on a spring, go straight back the other way. So you have to reverse the controls. Not super intricate, but it's enough that it's worth probably paying like $9.99 to have a couple analog sticks, because on iOS it's $7 anyway to like have it ad free. And
okay.
I've bought all of the other ones on iOS minus Daily Dadish, on Switch minus Daily Dash. I think I'm gonna probably just pony up the cash and buy it on Switch, so I have two analog sticks. It's fundamentally the entirely same game, all the same elements, the springs, the spike hazards, the enemies, but it's in 3D. But the humor is there, which is why you play Daily Dadish, for like the weird shit your kids say to you at the end of each level.
Right.
And yeah, it's hard not to recommend. If you've not checked out any of the other games, I think they're all on iOS. You can play them free or not, but I kind of wholeheartedly recommend just paying a few bucks and buying them on an actual platform with proper controls. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna buy that
yeah.
right after this. I didn't realize that was the thing. Wow.
Yeah. I did like the first 5 levels and I was like, I need analog. So I'm just going to stop and buy these things. So the hard part is like I've had the daily Dadish, which for anyone who doesn't know is like there's Dadish 1, 2, 3, which are all platforming games, but Daily Dadish was the one he introduced like a year ago, or the developer introduced a year ago, where you play like one level each day. So like I'm just in this habit of like every day I play a new level, but I've been trying to adapt Dadish 3D into that, and I'm like, I don't think it's worth it. I just need to buy it and get it over with.
So for the daily ones, there is like a commentary on it too. Like there's
Yeah, there's still like
talking in
the
each.
quips, yeah, but they
Okay.
are recycling now. So technically, leap year day was the first and last new day of this year. So
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
still a great game. Totally recommend downloading it, but
Yeah.
probably on
To make over 300 of those things is crazy.
right, right. So what have you been up to?
Oh, I actually been playing a game. Actually, a couple of them, but I think we talked about this one a while ago that kind of looked interesting. Was Lightspeed Frontier, I think it's called, or
Yeah,
Lightyear Frontier, maybe. I forget what it's called now. Lightyear
something.
Frontier, I think.
Yeah, okay.
But it's a farming kind of game with, but the one with this one is you're a mech, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yes. You jumped into this. I was wanting to do it.
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So yeah. One thing I was taken aback by was that it's a lot more exploration than I thought it would be, which is good.
Right.
Um, there's different sections of the island that you basically have to clean up, and then you get the different resources from there.
Slime
And then
Rancher esque, maybe.
yeah, it is. It is pretty slime rancher, I would say. The different zones and stuff are different colors and stuff like that too.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and then you bring it back. The the farming and stuff like that is not overly complicated, and it's not really deep either.
Sure.
It is basically just like you get one of the the new areas cleaned up, so you start getting the resources, and then it just starts the new loop of like getting the new equipment for that, and then you get the new seeds or the new plant for them, and so it's kind of repetitive in that regard because it's like after a while you just don't use the original stuff.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. The traversal is hit or miss. I will say feels good most of the time, but then there's other times where you're like obviously a mech in kind of tight areas where it doesn't feel very good.
There's a joke there. I'm gonna leave it alone because I'm a mature adult now. We've been doing this podcast for enough years that I won't laugh at that. So to confirm, this is still early access or AKA Xbox game preview, right? Like this is not full gold, right?
Yeah, very much so. I unlocked all of the areas and I did all that, and then it opens up this area that you're like, oh, this is the end game, right? So you do this, and then it shows a thing on a map, and it gives you a new ability that's like kind of crazy. That opens up everything. It'd be like, oh wow, this changes everything. You can get to some places that you didn't even think you could get to. And it shows a map, and then like a little red dot. But there's nothing there, and I'm like, what did I miss? And I like finally looked it up, and then they're like, oh yeah, technically you kind of beat the game. They might add more. but
So
there's no credits. There was nothing.
this was one I wanted to dive into, and like maybe you can context it for me. Like, let's frame it in the sense of Pal World. Like, is it as short sighted and disappointing as like the tail end of how that came to be, or do you think it's still worth putting the time into to get to where you got? And how long did that take you?
Well, I think that's the plus side is like usually these games you're like, oh, you just expect 40, 50 hours, right?
Mhm.
This was basically 10.
Oh, okay. So
So
you can
not
jump in and
bad.
casually get there.
Yeah, with one play session you kind of get one of the areas done, which is kind of rewarding, because it's kind of like the loop. Getting one loop done, it's almost like you're just playing the
Yeah.
game a few times and then yeah. I will say what they give you at the end is cool, and then it's like, well, now what? Like you didn't give me anything to really use it for. You do get some more resources, but at that point, like you're not really using those resources to, do anything
Sure.
extra because there's nowhere else to go.
So it's not like
I
Pal
upgraded
World
my
where it
mech.
just expects 50 hours of your time to find out that like you're half baked.
Right. No, it's pretty quick. Yep.
Okay. That's
Um,
reasonable then, I think. Like I mean that to me feels like a true game preview, right?
right.
So
Yeah, I mean I wish I probably would have went into it if they did add more and finish it up. But we'll see if they do. Um, it was kind of like hit or miss on if they were going to do anything with it or not.
ugh, that's rough. Like you'd almost think like Microsoft was like, no, you need to have like better than like good intentions to make good before they, because like
Yeah.
Microsoft was like so notoriously, we're not going to do anything until it's gold. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
only recently that they've been like, hey, we have this game preview thing, which is like how everything fucking works these days. But
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised that they like that was like where they decided to stop because if they wouldn't have done like that map and that extra ability, I think it would have been like, oh yeah, this is a nice stopping point, Like you could have just rolled credits after that because it was cool.
but they want that nugget,
Um
right? Like they want the nugget for you to
yeah.
come back. So
Yeah.
well,
Um
that's cool.
and then the other thing was like after, a few hours in, the animations of switching tools. I mean, like it's a mech game, so there's a big animation to like, oh, I'm changing
Right.
my thing to a vacuum, and now it's a planter, and
And now I'm
so
pointing it
there's
at my dick, my robo dick.
yeah, yeah. I wish there was an option to just like quickly cycle between that stuff because it gets old after a while, where you're just like,
Mm,
okay, yeah, I need my vacuum out to get the water,
I could see
you know.
that. Well, that's cool though. Like I kind of forgot we talked about that because like yeah, it was on my radar too, and like I don't know what the hell has happened the past like month and a half, but like I just cannot find time to do games. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that you told me that like the time frame though, because like that gives me a chance to at least dive into it. Because to be honest, I've been playing like Diablo 4 and I'm super fucking disappointed. Like I think I'm probably
really.
done. I've heard there's no
Wow.
end game yet. I've from a guy I work with, and like if there's no end game, I'm just over it. Like I'll just go back and play it
Game
free. You
preview.
know what I mean? Yeah, game preview. Yeah. Well, speaking of game preview, I wanted to touch on something that was pretty interesting and not uncommon these days, but Norm, the gaming historian, announced that, he began his YouTube channel as a full time career in 2015, launched a Patreon. He puts out, I wouldn't even say arguably, it's not even arguable. He puts out the best premium documentary style video game retrospective and history videos that are out there. Like there's nobody, you can say things about the Game History Foundation, but like he's the best, right? Like he is the guy that
Yep.
you would expect his videos to be on PBS. And that's saying something. He announced that like after doing that for almost 10 years, he has decided to like step away, not from the channel, but from it being his full-time job, which I think is admirable. And he wants to learn to appreciate playing video games and talking about video games as his like side project and passion, which I think is probably indicative of a lot of YouTubers and why you're seeing so much of that. What I will say though is leading up to this, he released what I would consider one of the most interesting, in-depth, and detailed documentaries he's ever done, and that was on the Oregon Trail, which I find of particular note super interesting. So there's a couple of things that like based on our geography that I find wildly fascinating and seemed completely ordinary to me as a kid growing up. And that is that there was a Lost in Where in North Dakota is Carmen Sandiego game that was the only state exclusive Carmen Sandiego game ever made. I played this all through my youth on Apple IIs growing up. But what I think is even more profound is the fact that Oregon Trail, which we all know and love, well, if you're our age, if you're 45 to fucking 38 to 7, I don't know. I didn't realize that that was created by a couple of computer enthusiasts and teachers in a community college south of Minneapolis, and that they coded that as a student teaching project that they implemented on early computers in Minneapolis. Coincidentally, the same Minneapolis school that Prince was attending at the time. Doesn't have any relevance in the game, but like you're just like, wow. So like watching his documentary and realizing that like they had done that, and then explaining, in the documentary that like we took the code off the computer, the mainframe computer at our school, and we just moved on with our lives because there wasn't a computer video game market at the time. And it's just like,
Well, and then because it was publicly funded, they couldn't sell it either, right?
right. And they pushed it out into like they push it in one of those like early PC magazine things where it's just like, here's the code. If you key it in yourself, you can play Oregon Trail. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
it's just so fascinating. And it's like, God, I didn't realize that like Minneapolis was, and the Minneapolis like Electronic Computer Association was like this huge driving force in the, because I'll be honest, everybody, like in the United States, the Midwest is basically thought of as like, I don't know, the cesspool of culture. But it turns out that Minneapolis was actually like a driving force in computer engineering in the early days and early networking. And it was state funded before it became incorporated. And Oregon Trail was the driving factor in that. It was just super fascinating. And yeah, to just learn the circumstance of why these three guys who they interviewed, and like they're all like, it wasn't about fortune or fame. We wanted to educate people. I didn't need to buy a small island. And it's like, dude, you guys should be fucking rich. And then they're like,
Yep.
well, when the sequel came out, we got like a denim jacket and a copy of the game. That was the only acknowledgement we ever got. And it's like, you have to be a little bit like, I know they're being good sports about it, but like secretly they have to all be a little bit bitter. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and that whole group, like the MECC, did a ton of other games too.
Yeah. And like how, what the funny thing is like the MECC was like so ahead of its time in that it was like, we will license our library of games to you annually on a subscription. Does that sound like anything we know now? I don't know. It's not Game Pass at all. It's just like this license of like educational software, but it's so wild to me that like Minnesota was like so invested in that early on and like at the forefront. And like they talk about the acquisitions, right? Like and like the Milton Bradley thing and like how it was considered like the worst corporate purchase ever. But I don't know, that was fascinating to me. Which I don't know, it, it bums me out because like I think that was probably I love everything that guy does, Norm the Gaming Historian, and that was probably like tippy top, right? Like he poured everything into that, and it was so goddamn good and interesting to me for multiple reasons. The proximity to it helped a lot, but like everyone, right? Like we all died of dysentery. Like everybody knows that T-shirt. Like everybody knows that meme. Um,
Right. What are you going to do? You're going to go hunt. You're going to shoot every buffalo and leave them there.
right, and like to hear that
Because
he's
that's what our
like
forefathers did.
100% accurate. Lincoln was the best president ever, minus Donald Trump. Uh, yeah, and I don't know. It's just it's hard to witness somebody who's that talented and thorough and detailed and passionate have to step back, but at the same time you understand it, right? Like you totally understand that every waking moment of this guy's life for the last almost 10 years was I got to do the next thing. Like, and people think like, oh, it's a YouTube thing. Like you don't have a real job, but you forget that it's all consuming, right? Like it's every waking moment of every day you have, like between editing, writing, scripting, shooting. I don't know.
How often did you would say it was not quite once a month, maybe once every 2 months?
I would say he got to the point
Say?
where he was like every 2 months, but he he switched probably I would say 6, 7 years ago from monthly 30 to 20-minute videos to like full on documentary. I'm getting interviews of people videos, which I think changes your
Yeah.
dynamic, right?
Yeah, and I think that's probably where maybe you burn out more because that's a lot more involved, right?
Right. Right. And it's just, I think the part that pains me is like seeing somebody who does our hobby justice to that extent, like better than probably most people, casual people consider our hobby deserves. Like he was like the Steven Spielberg, right? Of like capturing our culture in a like crisp 4K edited, documented, fact checked way. Like nobody's going to pick up that slack. Not right away.
Not, not. I mean, there's no way you could do it. I mean, that's probably part of this. Is like I can't imagine he was gaining Patreon, right?
Right.
Like it's probably one of those things where people start falling off, whether they just decide to switch off of Patreon or whatever. And there's not a whole lot of new coming in, right? So
Right.
he's putting all this time in, and it's kind of dissipating. So I can understand it, and yeah, the amount of burnout I would have to imagine would be huge.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
to be done with something and be like, okay, I'm starting from nothing. What's the next video again? That would be
Right.
tough to do, I think.
Yeah. And like I think we can all say like, thanks, Norm. Like you did a
Oh yeah.
huge service. Hopefully he continues casually to do a continuing service, but like dude, the guy put in the work. Like if anybody like deserves a retirement on like the full front YouTube and just
Oh, and he's been
contributions
doing
to
it
the hobby.
forever. I mean,
Right.
way back from the retroware days. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
crazy how long.
Yeah. And it's amazing, like the progress he's made. And like it's awesome. So like bummed to
Hmm.
see him say that, but like totally understandable at the same time. So
How, how do you, I suppose, because he shut down his Patreon, right? So he's not taking any
he
money
will
now.
be. Yep.
Yeah. So, boy, that's really hard to get back on any type of horse and say, like, I'm going to even make a small video, you know?
Yeah. And I think like the best thing he'll have going for him is like the pedigree. So it's like even though he can take his time and won't have the money, he'll have like the pedigree to get like the key people to do a interview. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
And for anyone who's not, I don't know, Cliffy B or I don't know, some other asshole like that, like they'll take the time to talk to somebody who cares about what they care about. And hopefully Norm continues to be the voice and narrator of those stories. Yeah, it's rough. I'd love to see him be like, could you imagine like a no clip plus Norm mashup? Like just
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
those two mentalities of like, I don't know. Like those are the two channels that I probably respect the most as far as getting into the weeds of the industry. But I don't know how much longer those people are going to be around either because the
Yeah,
landscape is shifting so rapidly.
right. Because nobody cares about the history of things anyway. Like, could you imagine? Like, is anybody doing like the history of Flash games and shit like that? Like,
Right.
all that stuff is gone. Nobody's doing that.
Or even like early PC stuff like the ZX and like I know it's gotten like more
Yeah.
press now, but like it's still amazing to me like how many people don't realize like how like prevalent the ZX was like overseas and like why Nintendo didn't have a stakehold because the prevalence of that and I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's
It's a bummer, but I can see why it doesn't make business sense. Like, I just can't
100%.
imagine doing that much.
Well, and like I don't know a lot about his personal life, but I know him and his wife were both like that was like all we did all the time. I can't imagine the stress of that on a marriage. You know, if you're thinking about like having kids, like eventually you reprioritize and YouTube,
Right. And then,
while as rewarding as it can be, still just like bleeds in negativity and toxicity. You know what I mean? Like it's not sustainable for or I guess like any influencer too, you know, like extend that. Like it's not a healthy lifestyle long term, you know.
right, exactly. And then you have, I mean, how many people just want, okay, that was a great video. Where's the next one next week? You know,
Right.
they don't really understand the amount of time that goes into it because there are other people out there that make quality videos, not to that extent or that research, but they make quality videos every week. They usually have a big team behind them, which I don't know if normally has anybody helping, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. It's kind of like crazy that he made it 15 years or whatever without like a cancel moment, as far as I'm aware. So good for him, you know. Yeah. Well, in other current news, I see you've been watching a show that people seem to just really freaking like, or even playing the game because the show made it cool to play the game again. I don't know, either one.
yeah, we watch Fallout,
Yeah.
so we watched through all 8 episodes. Um, I won't give it the hype that I think it has right now
Okay.
because it's pretty hyped up.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like Last of Us series hyped up almost,
right,
which is crazy because it's a Prime series. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't
When
know.
was the last Prime series that what people were actually talking about? You know,
Right. Nobody.
on this scale for sure. Even the Lord of the Rings one, I felt kind of like came and went.
Yeah. And I thought that one was better than most people gave it credit for, but that's just me.
Yeah. Um, this one's good, but I don't know. It's it's got a decent balance of like seriousness and comedy at the same time.
Sure.
Um, which obviously Fallout it has, you know,
Yeah, it's got
extreme
that.
violence on one side and messed up stories, and then just wacky shit too. So it makes sense. I don't know if the one of the actors is really good. The other two main actors, I'm not completely sold on, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of it is Fallout. It's cool to see that they made these sets, or if they did, I have to imagine they did. I don't know how you would digital a lot of this stuff, but it's cool to see some of the sets. I
How
don't know
was
how much
Bobby
how much
Lee in it?
Fallout. I didn't see him in there. Where is he in there?
I don't know. He's supposed to be in it. I just watched
Oh,
his podcast and supposedly he's in Fallout.
oh, maybe I missed it from
Is there an
somewhere.
Asian
But
man somewhere that you just didn't pay attention to?
in the city, there's a lot of background characters. Maybe he was one of him. I don't know. Um, have you played a lot of Fallout before?
No, I hate Fallout. I bought Fallout New Vegas because it got down to like $10 on Best Buy when it was pretty new. And I tried to play it, and then I realized that like everything was RPG elements, and
It was
I'm the
broken
type of
too.
person that if I point my gun at something and pull the trigger, I don't want it to be a random value as to whether or not I succeed.
Yeah,
And then so my greatest investment into Fallout was back when Screw Attack was still a thing. They did a like 5 day or 4 day like straight marathon playing through that game from the day it released. And I was working at home because it was during the pandemic during that time. So I watched 80% of that. It was always on in my house. So I basically saw Fallout 4 from start to finish. And that's as involved as I've ever been. I thought it was
sure.
cool. It was really cool. The storyline, neat. Do I need to play it? Fuck no.
Yeah, that's kind of what I assumed. It does have more shooter elements to it, but it also has all that other RPG stuff into it.
Yeah.
Um, so it follows some storylines and some characters a little bit of like what you would know in the game, but overall, it's just kind of generic to the setting and the vibe of Fallout more than anything.
Sure. That like weird
Um,
futuristic retro aesthetic.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Which is cool.
Yeah.
And that's probably where I think a lot of people that had no idea what this is, that kind of blows your mind, think about like, oh, there's robots, but they're singing 1940s music, and
Mm-hmm.
the cars look old as shit, but
Honestly, it like kind of just reminds me of Doom Squad. Like Doom Squad kind of was that for me.
yeah, yeah,
Or even Umbrella Academy to some extent.
kind of, yeah. There is some of that in there too. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I don't think it's as great as what people are hyping up to be. But I will watch the second season because there's enough interesting stuff in here. The one thing I will give it credit for, the writing in it is pretty good. It's written by Christopher Nolan's brother, the one that he wrote all the like twist movies that he did, so like Inception and Memento and all those,
I fucking
Prestige.
hate Memento.
Oh, that's one of my favorite movies.
Dude, I didn't take a film class in college. When you have to dissect Memento in an essay, like fuck that movie. It's
Oh
fine as
man,
a
that's
watcher, but like trying to get in the headset of that,
oh
like there's no right
no,
answer to do.
I love to discuss that
No.
end, like, oh, is this guy actually what he is? No, okay.
I did dissect Hedwig and the Angry Inch in the same class. It was quite interesting. So
Yeah, this one doesn't have quite the surprise ending. Like you can see some of it. There's some surprises, but for the most part, you can kind of see where it's going. But yeah, it kind of just reaches into a lot of these characters separately, so you don't get to see them all together a lot, which I feel like is kind of what they're going forward going to be.
sure. I mean, I could see liking this because, like, as someone who likes objectively the story and setting of Fallout, but hates the gameplay, this is probably for me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I mean,
give it a
and it's
shot.
got that like it kind of pushes the boundaries of like violence and like gore and like sexual comedy and that type of stuff too,
Right?
which I think obviously is part of the reason why it's kind of popular.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do plan to watch it. I just have to see if it's going to be available on like the Plex server that I have, or
Yeah.
actually, I think I have a login for somebody's Prime that I'm totally paying for, not somebody else's. Wink, wink. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I
No,
mean,
if you have the opportunity, watch one or two and see if you
it
like
is
the vibe of it.
interesting
But
that this has like been popular enough that like the games are like trending again and like downloading. You know what I mean? Like, because it's been a while, right? Fallout 76. I mean, and that didn't do
oh
anybody
yeah,
any favors. So,
no.
you know,
Um, even four. I mean, I looking back now, like me being excited for Starfield the way I was
yeah,
with how I played Fallout 4 and liked a lot of it, but then it was just too much. You know, it's just like, well, you're in a giant city and you can go anywhere and there's stuff and loot and there's
right.
NPCs and missions everywhere. Like that type of stuff, I just get paralyzed and it's just too much and I drop it. That's what happened with Fallout 4. There's too much in every direction. And of course, Starfield kind of did that, except they didn't give you anything like real. It was just like generated shit. But yeah, even Fallout 4, and I never played 76 because I mean, when it launched, everybody was kind of like, eh.
Yeah, it seemed like that was like kind of a universal dumpster fire. And I've heard they made better on it, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how that would work. You know, like I do like the more tactical, like freeze the frame and like see your values of like how you're gonna what percentage shot you have. Like I like that style.
Sure.
Um, we'll talk about why later, but another game similar to that. But this, I mean, Fallout New Vegas and 3 were obviously the go-tos for me. I mean, I've played the original 2 a little bit, but those are, you know, completely different type of game too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. They were like top down, right? Like at least the first one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been playing some new games too.
What you got?
New to my iOS iPhone because Delta, the emulator, is legal now. And it controls like
Apple said
jack
so.
shit. Like I just like I got so annoyed by everyone being on iOS. Like this is my dream come true. I'm playing Pokemon's on my iPhone. I'm like, dudes, like it doesn't work well with touch controls for 99% of your games. So then I posted to like Twitter a couple days later. I'm like, yeah, playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 for the N64 on my touchscreen. I was like, you haven't lived until you played it on your iPhone with touch controls. Then I had a meme of Norm MacDonald saying, like, note to self, I don't want to live. Because that's kind of what this is. Like, it's without a synced Bluetooth controller, this is hell. Like,
Oh,
you can play
yeah.
tactic games, you can play probably Pokemon just fine, but for everything else, in all intents and purposes, this is like a chore in frustration. Like even Mario, right? Like you think Mario, you want to roll B to A, Y to X, whatever the fuck for Super Nintendo. But like basically you have to make a decision. You have to go into the settings and say, like, I want a hard map, the run button to always be on, right? Simple solution. You think that'd be perfect, right? No, because you pick up every fucking turtle shell that you run into, which presents a whole other round of bullshit problems.
Oh, yeah.
So I like this thing. And I'll tell you why I like this thing. I didn't buy a DS. I've experienced almost none of the library. And this lets me do it on my phone when I'm sitting at the doctor's office. And I've been playing
And
a good
it's
amount
like
of like,
upright.
yeah, right. You can do it. You can do it upright
Yeah.
or you can do it side by side. Upright, I think you
Okay.
get better like screen resolution. But for someone who didn't play, say, like, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars and wants to experience it, it's not great. It kind of sucks, but it's free and it's not for the sake of game preservation like everybody wants to fucking toot their horn to. It's theft. I'm stealing and I'm playing a bad version of I'm playing a perfectly fine version of a game that controls like shit, but I've never experienced it and it's pretty fucking good. And that's where I find value in this. Every virtually every genre I've tried beyond, and I hate RPGs, so I'm not going to do it. It's just a chore. It's I don't like it. I could bring a controller, right? Or I could set this thing up at home and pair my 8-bit Do controller for my analog duo. But what's the point? But for DS, as someone who's never done it, Delta is a great way to do it. In fact, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 runs pretty goddamn well on the N64, shockingly, as someone who's never played it before. I just wish it controlled better. But yeah, Chinatown Wars is a fucking cool game. Um, I know it's been reviewed well. Not many people played it, but like it is Grand Theft Auto as shit. It's like I think there's like f bombs in the text like within the first like 5 minutes of that game, and it's 3D rendered. It plays kind of like a mix between the early games and like three. So yeah, it's cool. Delta
So
is cool
does
for
is the
that.
shoot button on the front buttons?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
suppose it would. Yeah. Yep.
Well, actually, I take that back. I have not gotten to shoot in that game yet, but the shoulder
Okay.
buttons are like marginally above. That's a good point. I haven't gotten to shooting yet. That could be a real problem. Um,
Because that's like the cutoff for me from like good feeling Grand Theft Auto
yeah,
compared to the old ones. Like when they switched
yeah.
to the back
I'm
to the
worried
actual
now.
triggers.
Well, I mean, there's 4 buttons on the Game Boy Advance, so I'm hoping they didn't map them to the triggers. But two of
Yeah.
them are dedicated for drive. Let's just hope it doesn't turn into that. So, yeah.
So what's the layout on something like an N64 controller? How does that even work on?
Just
Is
cram
there like three
down.
prongs on the bottom?
Yeah, and like it's crammed down into like a Game Boy Advance type thing. You can do landscape too. I will say the cool thing about Delta is there are like user modified or modified skins that can change the controller layout to some extent. They aren't perfect. I've downloaded modified ones for almost all of the consoles, but it's just that whole thing of like capacitive touch, right? Like it requires effort to make a button press for an input on that type of device, and it doesn't work. Honestly, yeah, I think if you had like what are those like I forget the name of the controllers, like the main ones where you like clip it in. This would be a
Oh, the
hundred.
backbones. Yeah.
Yeah, Backbone would be great. Like probably
Yep.
seamless, but I'm not the audience for that, right? Like I'm the person who has like 10 other ways that I would rather do than this.
Yep.
This to me is the thing I do when I have no other option. Like this is like me downloading Metal Slug on my Razor phone in like 2007. Like that's what this
Right.
is, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. You're
yeah,
stuck somewhere that you have no other option. Yep.
100%. So it's cool. I'm glad everyone's really celebrating it. I'm more surprised that nobody's like, this also kind of sucks, but I'll be that guy, I guess. So,
And also, like all the Android people are like, "Good for you. We've had
yeah.
it for
Yeah, we didn't have
forever."
to go to like some weird like side load app program that you had to hook up to your fucking Mac. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny because like people are just like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that in 2024 I can." It's like, dudes, like your phone's been capable of this for over 10 years.
A long time.
It
Yeah.
just did not allow it. Like I get it. Like wholeheartedly, I'm happy for everyone who's like enjoying it and having fun with it. I'm having fun dicking around with it too, but I don't know. It is what it is, and like anyone pretending like it's preservation over piracy is sorely mistaken because that's we can have that debate
Well,
all day long,
if
but at the end of the day, it's
if it really sucks playing it, that's kind of the punishment for theft, right?
yeah, that's true. I do like though that like everything runs except for DS. And then you have to go out and like find a BIOS for it because like I wonder how many people
Oh
actually
yeah.
do
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out, but like probably a lot of people
Right.
don't do that. So yeah, It's cool. It's forgettable though too. So
Yeah.
I'd
I've been
rather play
playing a
Baby
lot on that.
Dadish 3D or Dadish 3D.
Oh yeah. I've been playing a lot on that little handheld.
Oh yeah, the little like piece of shit boy I gave you or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's pretty
pretty bad
fun.
emulation on most of those consoles, isn't it?
Yeah, the Super Nintendo one is that one's rough. Wow.
Yeah, by far the worst.
Which is kind of weird. Like I wonder if it's just the emulator that's bad because like Sonic can run pretty I mean it
Yeah,
runs full speed, which is
it,
surprising.
it has to be emulation because like, but it's disappointing because like it's built into a Super Nintendo controller, so like that should be the premier thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yep.
yeah, yeah. What have you been
Kids love
playing
it
on
too.
that?
So I've been playing the Legends or Link's Awakening
Okay,
because the kids were looking at that.
yeah, yeah. That'll open some
Um,
doors here, I think, at least for Byron and Burn, because like I was like, well, if we both have one of these like terrible consoles, we can like just pick random shit and play it. So
yep,
all those
yep.
Hamtaro games in the Game Boy Color are really coming in mind.
Which is funny because that's one of the first things on there. Because my
Yeah,
I went to the whole games list yet, and
yeah.
it's like he thinks it's just a machine that plays like 16 different games. So it's like one of them's Hamtaro.
Yeah. Yeah, it amazes me like how poorly Super Nintendo runs, but then like how great most of the MAME stuff runs. It's like
Yeah,
clearly you didn't
it's weird.
optimize this at all.
Yep.
Yeah. That'll be cool. We'll have to dive into that at some point and just do like random portable shit roulette for Byron Burn, I think.
Yeah. Well, it kind of led me down the hole of like looking at those ones, those really nice ones that are like, oh, you can play PS2 and GameCube and stuff on them.
Yeah.
And, they're starting to get up to a few $100, and then you're like, well, this is
Hey, for
you get
25
to do that
bucks.
type of stuff.
Right. Like
Yeah.
even if like 5 games work on that for 25 bucks, it's totally worth it.
Oh yeah, that's
And like the thing that kills me with that is like the battery life is like stupidly better than I expected. Like I was thinking like,
yeah,
oh, I'll get
yeah,
like an hour out of this, but like I
yeah,
swear I imported that from China and didn't charge it for almost like 2 weeks, like playing it like 15 minutes at a time and still kept going. So
yeah.
I mean it's probably selling our souls over to, North Korea and Russia, but at least we can play Snake's
Yeah, because
Revenge or whatever.
yeah, on the back there's two speaker holes, but one of them is covered up. There's no
Yeah, there's
speakers.
only
There's
one
one speaker on
speaker.
the one side.
Yeah.
So maybe the other side is a microphone or something that they're just
Okay.
listening to us.
And a video cam. Yeah, it's like heat sensing. It's
Yeah.
like those, remember those old like TLC documentaries where they just like in heat sensor film like genitalia so they could like basically record porn and show it to you, but not have it be porn. It's that. So just don't keep it in your bedroom.
That's where all that technology went. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Damn you, TLC. Yeah. Back when you used to learn about things on that channel. Well, I see you have an X-Men update.
Yeah. If you're not watching X-Men 97, you got to get on that.
I am not yet. I want to, but I will say I went to Target and they have an exclusive line of Marvel 8-bit Funko Pops that are based around the new 97 series, but are also pixelated for 8-bit to be like the video game in the series. And they are fucking cool as hell. And I almost bought Jubilee.
Oh wow.
And I was like, no, I don't need this. And I put it back, but it looked great. And it made me want to
Yeah,
watch the series.
there is a episode where they get sucked into video game and they're all pixelated and stuff.
And there is a game coming now officially, right? From what I've
Oh,
heard.
really? I didn't know that.
I've
That's
heard.
good. Wow. Yeah, they go places in that show to like a pretty serious extent.
Yeah.
They haven't completely like gotten back to like the ramifications of what happened, but yeah, there's some pretty like whoa, this changes everything type thing.
And it's still running or they are done.
I think it might be half done now.
Okay.
It's only half done, I think.
So they're going for like a 16 episode season, or
Yeah. Or yeah, I'm not sure how many it is. If it's 10, I don't know. I think the sixth one just aired
okay.
this last Wednesday. So,
I don't know why I had it in my head it was like up to season or episode 8, but
hmm
obviously
but
not there
yeah,
yet.
it's. I mean, the animation on it is incredible. Like the even the action in it is more action packed than anything that like would see in these million, 10 or $100 million, $300 million movies. Um, and I think the audio, the audio is kind of weird, but it seems like it's more cinematic that way, not just like a hokey kid show. Then, but yeah, it's such a well packaged, like all around. Um, yeah, I can't recommend it enough. It's probably the best Marvel thing since Avengers.
Nice. I was out in the garage arcade the other weekend or last weekend, and we were watching. I don't know. It was just like mid afternoon, maybe like a Friday night, and like scrolling through stuff with my wife, and I was like, "Well, did you ever watch the original X-Men series?" And she's like, "No, but we can." And I was like, "Oh." Like, no, we'll do something different. So I
Yeah.
didn't. I was like, I don't want to force her through it because, like, I know what would have happened. To turn it on, she'd have gone to bed in like 30 minutes, and like,
Yeah.
which I guess I don't mind watching X Men by myself, but I'll wait and find a time to do it. So it it appeals to me. I don't think I've been on Twitter and saw bad comments about it. Everybody seems to be
Yep.
raving. And
Yep.
something happened big in season or episode 5 that everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Wow, it blew my mind." So
Yeah. That episode specifically is pretty nuts.
nice.
Just the way, like, how could a cartoon be like that? But yeah, they definitely did it. And the Deadpool trailer looks pretty good too. I mean, that whole Wolverine Deadpool thing is probably going to be pretty good. So
Haven't seen it, but I expect it to be good.
yeah.
I am just waiting for Wrexham season 3. I don't care about Deadpool 3, to be honest. So Wrexham was in
That's your
my
only
topic
Ryan
list and I
Reynolds
took it
content.
off. I was like, nah, I don't want to talk about Wrexham again. It's fine. I heard that they were like there was possibly a Wrexham player in the background of the Deadpool 3 trailer.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not sure though. Like my Google feed is inundated with Wrexham stuff. I don't know. I suppose I've searched it out enough, but yeah.
That's funny that now they're buying a team and now they're like outsourcing the players to like be in their movie
Well, I
projects.
mean, they got promoted to the next league up, so they need to find a way to like make more capital. So it's like,
Yeah.
how many more endorsements can we get? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Speaking of that, sort of an unendorsement, kind of a bummer. We learned that, and maybe a lot of people learned that after we got back from MGC, there's that announcement from Ship to Shore Vinyl Co. Um, if not the first, arguably the first vinyl, like mom and pop vinyl company that was putting love and energy into making 8-bit, 16-bit, and retro game video soundtracks on vinyl. Um, I don't know. We would see them at conventions all the time. They were good people. I talked to them. I've ordered plenty of stuff through them. Their craftsmanship is great. But yeah, they sent out an announcement that I know there was like a sale, like I want to say 2 months ago, and it was like a shipping warehouse or changing warehouse sale, right? But it didn't seem like they were going out of business. It just seemed like they were moving locations. But when you piece that together, it was like, no, we're transferring our inventory to another seller, is basically what it
Today.
amounted to. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so it was kind of a bummer because like what was cool about Chip to Shore was like it was a passion project and it was equally rooted in video game soundtracks and curation as it was in like horror and like early media, like cult media stuff. So it's like nobody's really filling that niche the way they did. Um, So it's a bummer to see them go. I understand why they got out because like while they pioneered it, you have companies like Limited Run and like 8-bit like coming in and like partnering
And
with
gamer,
them.
yeah,
Right. And like doing the same thing. Right. So it's like they got outgamed kind of in their space, but at the same time, they kind of didn't because they always picked titles and games that they were passionate about. It was never
right,
about like the mass appeal, right? Like they put the goddamn Gradius series on a vinyl collection. Like who gives a fuck, right? Like people do, but
yeah,
not like mass gamers do, right? That and like I have the Bayou Billy 7-inch. Like it's fantastic. That's a shitty game. Nobody cares about the game. Soundtrack, great. And
yeah,
that's the kind of stuff
and
they
only
did.
yeah, and only that gamers would know that that's that game was known for the music, and
Right.
Konami music. All these other places like it's like, oh, we have the new Celeste thing. It's like, okay, yeah, but
Right. But
sure,
do
it's
you
good
have
music, but
Bio
it's
Miracle Baby? No, you don't. And it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And I'm guessing that's where he lost his ass on the really popular stuff. Like if you don't have Undertale and you don't have all this, maybe you probably lose your ass on.
and a classic case is
Um,
like I was like after you text me the fact that they were going out, I was like, fuck, what does that mean? Because I pre-ordered the NES TMNT arcade game soundtrack months ago. But here's a case in point. They were one of the options. They weren't the only option because Limited Run also had a vinyl variant, right?
mhm,
So I like kind of freaked out, but like turns out they're fulfilling that one. But like there you can see the segmentation of the business, right? Like they weren't even getting the full business and licensing deal exclusively through them for something that should have made them loads of cash, right?
right. I mean, comparatively, I mean, you're still talking about vinyl
Vinyl for retro video games,
video game
correct?
for
Yes.
retro video games. I mean, the market is probably only so big already. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a bummer because yeah, just you saw his selection and it was like nobody gave a shit about this game, but you recognized it had good music and you wanted it on there.
Yeah.
That says a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not just we have a turtles thing.
Yeah, it's a bummer to see them go. But like I think I don't know, vinyl's a weird space, right? Because like it weirdly came back when it shouldn't have, and now it's kind of I don't know that a prevalent artist could release an album these days without a vinyl variant, which is wild in
No, if
2024.
if anything, there's just like unrest about Taylor Swift's like variants across, right? Like
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
now she's talking about the starting line, and everybody's like, oh, they're the greatest again. And I don't understand it. So, yeah. But
yeah,
RIP ship to shore. You guys did awesome work. I own a lot of your vinyl and I'm going to cherish it. And I hope that they get to dive back into it at some point. It didn't seem like it was necessarily the end, but it was the end for now. So
yeah. I didn't get the sense like the person that was taking it over was going to do a lot of new creations. Did you? I don't know.
no, no. It seemed like it was like liquidation, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
Well, staff picks minus a bathroom break.
Yep.
Okay. Now, mental note, don't forget to edit that out. He needs to hear me peeing for a minute and a half. All right.
I'll put some music under it. It'll be fine.
I like it. All right, so staff picks.
Looks like yours is like related to what we were just talking about. So.
Yeah, I'll go first because mine will be short. So I sent this recommendation to our former third man. I don't know if people remember him, Biff, which he seemed greatly offended by, which I find hilarious. But so I found this YouTube channel called Obscurest Vinyl. And I'm still 12 inside. I'm not above a fart joke or a dick joke. And basically, what this channel is, and I love it, the dedication to the premise is it is a YouTube channel dedicated to recreating vintage era songs in the vinyl era, like the good old days, like the 60s, 70s, 80s. And he just creates tracks and cover art based on old obscure vinyl sort of sounding stuff that you'd never find. So I will say I was introduced to Obscurest Vinyl with the song I Glued My Balls to My Butthole Again. And it's awesome. And the refrain in that song is fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on glue. And I laugh every fucking time I hear it. It is stupid. It's horribly immature. It's a song about a man who can't defecate because his balls are glued to his butthole. And I love it. And there's other classics
terrible.
like taking a shit on the company dime. You know, best 45 minutes of his fucking life. There's one
that
with
sounds like a Johnny Cash song or something.
Yes, there's one with a woman on the cover art whose arms are like she's doing like, you know, the old like motion like swinging her arms. It's like, fuck, my arms are stuck like this. Like, am I gonna die? Like, that's the whole premise of the song. And he started uploading new stuff which he like pieces together his recent releases of songs and then like puts them into like a shitty old timey radio format, like where people are calling in like, "Hey, you fucking idiot! I fucking," and then he like cuts to like balls are glued to my butthole again. And I don't know. It's not for everybody. It's probably for mostly nobody, but it's totally for me. It's hilarious. It's offensive. It's crude. It's stupid. But Obscurest Vinyl, please just look that shit up. I laugh until I cry at it. I'm not every man, I understand that, but it made my fucking day, and it still continues to do so.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. So do they? Do you think he comes up with a song first before?
So I don't even know. And then like I'm wondering if he even does the vocals himself, or if he just uses like if he scrapes the audio and then uses AI to like do the singing, which is totally possible because there's so many varying styles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's mostly just, to me, the thing that impresses me and endears it to me is just like the commitment to the stupidest bit. Like, it is so dumb, but the level of care given to it is just incredible. So yeah,
that's what people appreciate. Though. Yeah.
And then you can't forget like the classic "Don't Jizz in the Hot Tub." I mean, God, the list goes on. I threw it on Twitter and like a few people commented, Cestus commented, which like I I mean I bait and switched people because I was like, oh my God, it's catchy and relatable. And it was like the glued my balls to my butthole, and I just put a link. So I know a bunch of people click that and were like, this fucking guy, right? But I don't know. It's great. Like I'm not the type of person who takes offense to pervertedness and a lot in excessive swearing. So if you are that type of person, I don't recommend, but for everyone else, it's a goddamn good time. So
you're shipped to shore. There's a new business opportunity.
Get these out the door. If glued my balls to my butthole again and jizz on my hot tub were a 7-inch back on the opposite sides, 100%, all my money. I will give you all my money for that on vinyl. Done deal. But what is your more mature and probably more solid recommendation or staff pick?
Oh boy.
Not a recommendation
Yeah,
because we didn't steal that from R3.
I
Staff pick.
yeah, I cannot top gluing my balls to my butthole. Um,
Nobody can, really.
shame on glue. That's
Shame
great.
on Glue.
uh, Mine is so. I think they announced a sequel to this. I didn't see this new Nintendo video, but I saw that they were making another Steam World Heist movie
Okay.
or game.
Have you played the original? Oh, this is your recommendation, I assume.
This is my recommendation. Yeah. So it started with that, and then for at the same time, my son got into Steam World Dig 2, which is an amazing game. I mean, I can't recommend that one enough too.
So did you give
So
him the
then I was
SteamWorld Dig / Heist dual pack for the Wii U?
I have that here somewhere.
You didn't make him play it on the Wii U? I'm ashamed.
No,
You're the
no.
Wii U guy, man.
I know. I had Dig 2 on the Switch, so he's been playing on there. And then I realized that I had SteamWorld Heist on Steam, never played it. And that type of game, like I looked at him like that is my type of game. It's like it's a tactical shooting game, basically.
Which is funny because like I loved the SteamWorld series, and then I was like, Heist doesn't seem like the type of game that fits into the other two that I liked, but I also put no effort into learning what it was actually about. So
Oh, yeah. It is very much a tactics game where like you're going through these spaceships. You kind of have a fog of war because you have to open each door to see what's in the next room. So you open the next door, and usually it's kind of each person can shoot a gun, and then you can ricochet the bullets around. So it's a lot of like aiming within the context of the room.
sure.
But more often than not, you just go directly at the guy and shoot him in the head anyway. So
It's still all 2D, right?
Yep, yeah, it's 2D, same art style, same robot type thing. But yeah, you're scrappers in space, basically attacking all these other ships, getting scrap, and gaining levels, getting new equipment, that type of stuff. So far, yeah, it's totally my type of game. That tactics I really enjoy. And yeah, so far I'm liking it. I'm probably about 4 hours in, maybe. So
Yeah, I should check that out because I mean I love SteamWorld 1 for what it is, but 2 like for the Metroidvania it became, and I should give it a shot because like when they demoed or touched on Heist 2 at the Nintendo or whatever they call them direct, it was open in 3D or
oh really? Okay, I didn't know
not.
that part.
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was like
Yeah,
essentially open world.
I haven't
3D.
seen anything from it I just saw it was announced. I'm like, oh okay.
Okay, Nintendo. I don't know. What are they called? Nintendo Direct? I forget. Indie World. Why? Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I should look at that. I've had it forever on that split disc because like you, I had SteamWorld 2 installed, and my kid beat that after I beat it on the Switch, and I was like, hey, you got a Wii U in your room. Why don't you play this game? It's the first version plus Heist, and he never
Oh sure.
he played the first SteamWorld. He didn't play Heist, I don't think at all. So
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's on the same level as the Dig because I think Dig is just kind of like a masterful Metroidvania.
right. Well, 2 anyway. Yeah.
Too, yeah. The first one's pretty good. Is just good to just have the satisfaction of digging.
Yeah. 2 is the first one feels very rudimentary but fun at the same time.
Yeah.
So do you think like SteamWorld Heist is like Is it as fast paced as like SteamWorld 2, or is it like a slower, more methodical type game?
Yeah, it's way slower. It's turn based, so
Oh, really?
it's yeah,
Oh,
you
I
bring
shouldn't
three
play
characters
this.
along. Yeah, it's definitely it's probably not up your alley, I would say, because the main thing that's not turn based, or it's just more of the action of it is still just like aiming your gun around, and but it's still turn based, so
Is it
you
like on a
just have
swivel?
all the time in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then you can get laser
Yeah,
uh things on it, so you can see where it bounces off the wall and where it would aim and stuff like that.
that might appeal to me though, because I'm like the type of asshole who like doesn't like RPGs, but like I would tolerate Legends of Dragoon because like, oh, if I hit X at the right time, I did a double damage. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it might be enough interaction that I could get by.
Yeah, it's not like overwhelming like a Fire Emblem is, where it's just like, or even Advance Wars. It's because it's on a 2D plane, so
Okay.
it's not too bad. Um, I I see that one, the SteamWorld build that's on Game Pass, and that I haven't looked too much into that.
I don't
I
know
mean,
if
I
I'm even
assume that's a
aware of that.
survival game of some sort, but
Yeah, I don't know if I've even checked into it.
yeah,
Same group?
it must be.
Huh.
I mean, it's definitely the same art style look, I think, but
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. Might
I'll
have
have
to
to
get into
give.
that one too.
I should maybe give SteamWorld Heist a shot because based on their previous work, I probably at least owe them that. So,
Yeah,
well,
I think they made an actual RPG, right? Like SteamWorld Quest or something like that. I want to say,
that sounds maybe right. Yeah.
but
Well, talking about a
SteamWorld dig.
studio, talking about a studio and a series we all love. Let's get into the weekend rental. What do you think?
Oh yeah.
So, the weekend rental, for anyone who's uninitiated, we play a game for a given system. We give our opinions as to whether we would personally buy, rent, or burn that game. By burn, we mean set it on fire. The system of choice is the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom this go around, and we are playing the recently brought to Nintendo Switch Online game of Wrecking Crew 98, which
The
one would
new roster
assume,
dropped.
yeah, which one would assume would be a continuation of Wrecking Crew, the NES black box game, which is included in this package, but we will not talk about because it's not really the new ad here. What is the new ad is Wrecking Crew 98, which decides that it will take the more action focused, puzzle platforming focused predecessor and turn it into a frustrating, overwhelming clusterfuck of a side by side versus puzzler?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
a
it's a straight up
puzzler?
puzzle game. Yeah, it's a puzzle game.
It's a fuggler.
I mean, you're matching colors. That's a puzzle game.
Yeah, so in this game, you can still control what is Mario with a hammer. Um, and you are competing against an enemy on the right side of your screen, and you're matching color variants in chunks of 3 or higher, whereas vertical and horizontal rows of 4 or higher net you power ups and attacks against your enemy. And you do this by either stacking them vertically or horizontally on their own, or you can manipulate the playfield by line scrolling it horizontally as well. So it's not just a falling block game. It's got an extra layer of, you could say,
Manipulation, sort of, I
manipulation. I would
guess.
call it a fucking headache, I guess is where I was trying to go with it.
Yeah, because it does add another layer. I mean, that's really where I turn the corner. I mean, we stream this on Twitch, Twitch
Mhm.
TV dot or slash weekend rental.
It'll be on
We
YouTube eventually.
yeah, we stream this, and I had I probably spent 40 minutes trying to beat the first guy, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Makes you feel
until,
better at it in the first go.
wow, that's pretty good.
Suck on that, Andy. Yeah.
Yeah. You
I
knew
had
the
to watch
secret
you
though
play
after
though.
that.
Yeah. You showed me how to play.
Yeah. It definitely got to the point where it was like, okay, scrolling those rows back and forth, you need to do that. There's no way you could not
Right.
manipulate the board the way you want. One thing to point out, like you said, is it, only things 4 and above do any damage or do anything to the other side,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of common in some combos and stuff like that in
But that
some
should be
puzzle
the
games. But
baseline then. Like the core gameplay shouldn't be fucking you inadvertently. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And it feels like it
there's
is.
some there's a lot of times where you're trying to set up a combo of 4 by manipulating the board, and one aspect of this game is they hide what color is behind the certain blocks by just having bricks over it, so you have to smash the bricks to see what color it is. Oftentimes you'll do that in the middle of like something that you're trying to set up, and oh, it just so happens to be the same color and it matches 3, and it doesn't do anything, and you lost your combo that you were just spent 5 seconds, 10 seconds trying to set
Yeah.
up.
And to jump on that, a lot of times it requires you to jump up a space or two and hit in the air, which the controls are not precise enough to be accurate. So a lot of times you'll end up smashing inadvertently the wrong brick below it,
Yep.
which
Yep.
is terrible.
Yeah, it's that's pretty bad. And that first AI guy, if you they don't mess around, they don't ease you in. You have to learn this game. Which I mean, you can give hats off to that, because some games they lead you down a path thinking that you're doing well, and then all of a sudden you're not playing the game right, and you don't know why you
Mhm.
can't progress. At least this one's right off the bat. But yeah, it's still pretty difficult, I would say. My wife played for a while, and yeah, she was not having a good time. She finally did beat the first person, and then after that, yeah, you go on a roll of 2 or 3 after that, because you know how to play, you know what the right combos and stuff like that. What's interesting to me is that where I was setting up rows of 4, she's got the brain to set up combos. Where she'll set up a 3 in a row, and then that'll drop down another block that'll do 3 in a row, and that'll drop down. Like
That's genius level bullshit.
I
I
couldn't
can't
do it.
handle that.
I couldn't do that.
Okay.
Um, this there's a lot of reasons why this game doesn't work for a puzzle game, because for one, you empty out your side of the field pretty quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and for the longest time we didn't realize that there's a way to drop more blocks, just have more blocks.
Right. Which luckily
So
you had the English patch. Those of us with Switch
right,
Online do not have that. So you can't even go to the
that's a
help
great
section.
point. You would have never figured that out.
No, I would have never fucking known. I
Yeah,
didn't
that
have to use
game
like
that
Google Translate on my phone to do that.
that's yeah, that's a big oversight, because oftentimes in a match you'll get the opponent on the ropes because you made a huge combo, and all your blocks are gone, so you just have to sit there and wait for new blocks to come.
Yep.
Meanwhile, they're clearing their board. So that's awful.
And here's the other thing that's awful is like in a puzzle game, consistent rules are key, right? But you have sections of the board that come and go on a random timer, seemingly to let you traverse horizontally. And that completely changes your ability to combo, predict, and change. And that's bullshit. Like it's complete bullshit.
Yep. Yeah, that Yeah. And the different colors mean different things. So it's like, well, what happens if you just don't have the right colors that you want? You know, that really you can't really do the attack that you want to do.
I did find out that bombs, I can confirm that bombs destroy steel barriers dropped by your
Okay.
opponent, but that doesn't make it any less frustrating because bombs
Right.
are seemingly random.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know how those are spawned, but yeah, the steel plates are most awful because they're just blocks that you can't do anything with.
mhm.
Other than the bomb that just happens to show up sometimes. But to me, the biggest sin of this game is like if you're on the ropes, usually what happens, the top of your board is all blocks with bricks in front, so you don't know what the colors are. So your whole screen is full of blocks. No colors are showing. You don't know what to do. All of a sudden, you can't. You're just like scrambling to break blocks.
Right.
You're not even playing a puzzle game anymore in this moment. Um, and hopefully, you can get it down to a space that you
Which,
can like kind of get back in the thing. But I've never. Once I got up to that point, I lost every time.
yeah, which those moments are the closest to like what the first game was. You know what I mean? Like the original
Right.
Wrecking Crew. But like, yeah, it is I think it has the best of intentions, but it is five play mechanics too deep and too overwhelming for like you can't like it's hard to explain like a good puzzle game, but you shouldn't every puzzle game should include strategy and like perceptional view on like where the strategy is headed. But there's just too much at play here in this game to make that at all an effective strategy. It is
Hmm.
bull crap, and the fact that you're playing against somebody else who you really can't take the time to like look at or acknowledge. Like every time I won a match in this game, it was like me thinking I had lost because the game had frozen and then realizing that like no, that was my victory, which
Hmm.
isn't satisfying. Like you don't even have a moment in the gameplay to just like appreciate the fact that you did well because you're so focused on like not doing poorly. I don't know. It's just I like the presentation. We talked about how there's very much a Yoshi's Island influence in the art style, which is cute and the story is good, but it doesn't make up for the fact that this is a very half-assed and poorly thought out puzzle game. And that's really what it
Yeah.
amounts to. You know what I mean?
This seems like a game jam thing. I mean,
I said
I mean, they're lit.
Satellaview. This feels like a Satellaview game,
Yeah.
and maybe it
Yeah.
was. I don't know.
Yeah. It's it does feel like that type of thing where they just kind of shit it out. Cause yeah, like the Yoshi's Island stuff has to be reused assets. It almost certainly has to be,
Yeah.
in my thought. It would have been lined up kind of around the same time. So yeah, this just seems like it was kind of dumped out. And I'm not surprised it didn't come over here because yeah, I think they realized maybe it was
Right.
not good. Wasn't in line with Dr. Mario or Tetris Attack or any of those, you know?
Or Pokemon Puzzle League. All good games,
Right.
not this. This is
Yeah.
one of the worst puzzle games I've ever played, and I own Hatris, and I would happily play that over this.
Yeah, we played all of those one night. That
We
was
did. Yes, the lost video. I forgot about that. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
The-
I don't know. I mean, I think we've said enough, but like what are your views on Byron Burn? What do you give it?
yeah, I'm burning this. This is I mean, I've played worse puzzle games. But this one takes the cake because I think it's not a puzzle game at some point.
Right.
You cannot just change the rules and turn it into a different game at the end just because you're losing. You have to give them a fighting chance of like coming back and doing some sort of crazy combo. But there's no way to do that if you're just stacking up blank blocks and
Oh, Andy froze. I don't know if he's coming back. Oh boy. Yep. Hopefully, because we just about wrapped this thing. I got his O face right now, which is fun to look at. But come on, internet, do your thing. Well, he burned
We're
it.
back.
He's back. He burned it. Yeah, and I would say like you pointed out something where um it's trying to strike a balance between a platformer and a puzzle game, and it fails spectacularly in both. I hated this game. I wanted to like it. The presentation is there, but this is a burn. It is. It's kind of surprising they even put it on Switch Online. It sucks. I could see maybe in a side by side 2-person thing it could be fun, but otherwise, like I have to just recommend people pass on this. Not good.
Yeah, I even 2-person because then I don't know, the first person to get a huge combo off I think probably wins the game. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, another episode, another Byron burning the books.
It is. I'll have to wait till the next Wrecking Crew comes out.
Yoo-hoo, Wrecking Crew.
That's going to be a farming game.
Yeah. Oh, sounds fun.
Yep. You get a hammer and a hoe this time.
I like to hammer my hoe. I'm sorry, everybody.
That's probably a obscure vinyl song, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna end the show on that. So
Sorry.
thanks again to all of those that shout us out on Twitter, because we're on there.
Yeah. For now.
We can rental PC, right?
Yeah.
Right, we can rental podcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitch on our off weeks, streaming our buy run burn games.
Yeah, check us out.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a really good
struggle.
Patreon exclusive David Crane's Amazing Movie Time coming out on The Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So
yes, if you want to hear our thoughts on that, we're going to be pretty enthusiastic about it, I would say. So you might want to listen to that. Yeah, that's on the Geekay Patreon to get access to that. But yeah, until next time, be kind, rewind.
Bananas?
Balls in the butt sack? Or not balls.
That's a better song. Yes! I got my balls in your butt sack again. That's the sequel. I'm going to text him. I'm going to message him. That's the sequel. I love it.
Yep.